Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Gutfeld, along with Andrea Tantaros, Bob Beckel, Eric Bowling, and she's Tinkerbell's stunt double. It's Dana Perino. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and it's raining. World meet radical Islam meet world. Thanks to the video of the UK machete attack, the media can't do their usual sugarcoating of the Muslim supremacy threat. For many, this is the first close look at a bona fide clash of civilizations. In the old days, we had pressure cookers on Leave It to Beaver. Now they blow up in crowds. Sweden used to be a bland country of cute skiers. Now they have riots among the dissatisfied. The UK suburbs used to be where old folk whiled away their peaceful years. Now they're the scene of beheadings of British soldiers. The bloody maniac blames the West, of course, for its meddling. Please, we'll happily ignore you if you just entered the 21st century, or even the 7th. A fact that destroys the grievance concerning an intrusive West. Why then are the Islamists brutalizing Egyptian Christians in their own country who are ethnically Egyptian, look and act like all other Egyptians? They just go to church, not a mosque. Why do the Somalis do the same? Why has Iran expelled nearly all its Jews? It's pure intolerance. Muslim supremacists are the rock stars of the Tolerati. Their greatest achievement is hate crime. The West planted a flag on the moon. They planted a flag in the chest of filmmaker Theo Van Gogh and killed him. But calling them out in the world of PC jiu-jitsu makes you the Islamophobic bigot, which is why our leaders mince words while our enemies mince soldiers. Yet talking heads ask, are they really terrorists? Let's see, you got a guy drenched in British blood yelling Allah Akbar, vowing to wage jihad. Nah, it's just another case of workplace violence. You know what, one fact that drove me crazy about this? Troops in London, Andrea, are now advised not to wear their uniforms outside bases. Generally, this is what they'll tell troops in foreign lands because there are people that don't like them. They think that they're not supposed to be there. This is their own country.
It's disgraceful, and it's sadly becoming the new normal. And I think that's what makes this attack different, Greg. They're going after what would typically be heroes, and they're doing it in a way that's not typical. They're not planes going into a building. They're not bombs going off. This is a very simple terrorist attack against people who give their lives every day. I don't care where you're a soldier. We also see now riots in Sweden today because radical Muslims are upset that somebody on their side who is a threat was shot. So when somebody on their side becomes a threat and gets shot, they're allowed to protest, they're allowed to riot. It's really disgraceful, but I will say I applaud the way Cameron handled it. There was no blaming it on a red herring hallucination video. There was no discussions. Is he a terrorist? Is he not? I don't know. It didn't take 5 days for them to come out and denounce this. So kudos to the British. We could learn a thing or two.
Yeah. Bob, there's always this meme, and it's seen in The Guardian. They had an article by Glenn Greenwald, which basically says, what's the definition of terrorism if you exclude the acts of the U.S.? Basically, the argument is that people that fight terror and people that wage terror are the same because civilians die on both sides. Do you buy that bull?
No.
Baloney.
Baloney.
A couple of things. First of all, it seems to me that if the guy doesn't like the West that much, what is he in the West for?
Exactly.
Number one. But you raised one thing that is of my particular interest, and that is that the way that radical Islamists treat Christians in Muslim countries. It is disgraceful. It is wrong. It was not, I assume, part of the Muslim culture to do that, and yet I've not heard a single leader of a Muslim country or a single cleric stand up and say this is wrong. And I find that just disgraceful. That we are Christians, we have a right to have our religion wherever we are, and we want to practice it, and they can practice theirs, but we can't practice ours. To hell with them.
Yeah, Eric, it's also, they're British. They're talking about the British invading their home country. What does that mean? It's not really that Nigeria. It's about an ideology.
Well, here's what it is. Let's call it what it is. It's Muslim terrorism. These guys are Muslim terrorists. They're indoctrinated, whether it's Inspire magazine, the online magazines, and then they're radicalized through their terror cells, and then they kill people, and that is the exact definition of terror. And then when they say Allah Akbar, it says they are Muslim terrorists. So we're calling it what it is. The mainstream media may want to candy code and say, well, we're not really sure whether they were terrorists or not. They were. They defined terror. You could go to textbook and look up radical extremist terrorists, and you find exactly what these guys did. it's no different than what Major Nidal Hassan did, though.
Exactly.
In Fort Hood, though.
Right.
He stood up, yelled Allah Akbar, blew away 12 or 13 people. Can't remember what the number was. 30 people injured. 12. Okay, it's the same thing, but we have to call it workplace violence because we're either PC and afraid to call it what it is. We're worried about offending Muslims, or B, President Obama doesn't want to admit that he had a terrorist attack under his watch, and he wants to call it something else. And a lot of people like me are pushing back massively on that characterization.
Dana, I want to run this clip of it was Ingrid Loya Kennett, the Cub Scout leader and mother of two, who tried to reason with this scumbag on the street after he committed a horrible crime. Let's roll that tape, and then I want to go to you.
So what was he saying to you? What did he say to you?
Well, I asked him, he said, don't touch, I killed him. I said, why? He said, he's a British soldier. He killed people, he killed Muslim people in Muslim countries, and they have nothing to do here.
Were you not scared for yourself in that situation?
No.
Why not?
Better me than a child, because unfortunately there were more and more mothers with children stopping around by, so it was even more and more important that I talked to him and then I asked him what he wanted.
I mean, you see this, and it seems so brave, but it could have gone another way.
It could have, but you've got the British stiff upper lip, and she was a model for all of us. And a lot of people will just be like, "Oh, God, I want to walk away."
I wouldn't want my mom to do that. I would want her to
No,
run.
but your mom probably would have done it, whether you liked her to or not. It was her instinct was to deal with that. And what is additionally disturbing is that the reason we are able to call a spade here is because the terrorist uses the media. To make his point. So he walks calmly to the camera and he makes a pronouncement.
Right.
And if we who want to fight terrorism, if you are not PC enough, you mince words or you cloud it in things like workplace violence or things like that, then we need to use the media just like the terrorists are trying to use the media against us. So that works in a lot of different ways, but he didn't mince any words when he was talking to the camera there.
No, and I wonder if the media should be playing that tape so people know what he's talking about, or does that just feed into it, Andrea? I don't know.
I think it's tough. I do think people should see it because I think they need to see the threat.
It's stark.
It is stark, and it's rough, but it allows an opportunity, a teachable moment, as the White House would say. What disappoints me the most, though, is when President Obama had the chance to acknowledge it many times, Fort Hood, Boston, Benghazi, and when he gave that speech in Cairo. And instead, he stood in front of the Muslim world when they were listening, and he said, we have a shared history of tolerance.
Well, the
baloney, as you were going to say before, Greg. That is just not true.
The first thing I thought about is I needed a translator with that British lady. I could not understand everything she was saying, but I thought it was good. But you know, this is a product of the British allowing Muslims to come into their country and establish. If you've been to London before, you see the areas which are all Muslim. Now, we can't do that going the other way. I took so much heat for the idea of not having student visas for 2 years. I was just dumped on from every direction. Why? I mean, we better take a hard look at our immigration policy and the people we're allowing in here. If they're going to come in here and preach hatred to us, or they're going to send their students here to get their best education, and then they turn out to be radicals, then we have to ask ourselves a hard question: should we do it?
You know, they're lucky. The Brits are lucky. They found a British Muslim terrorist that decided to use a machete and kill one guy. Ours use pressure cookers and try and kill hundreds of people at a finish line of a marathon. It's just crazy. There has to be we have to call it what it is. President Obama couldn't even do it today. He couldn't. Again, he could not say there's a war on terror. He had the opportunity to do it. He had the stage. He had a big, long-winded speech that droned on and on. And he could have absolutely said, it's time to stop. This is terrorism, and we will do everything to end the war on terror.
The written statement from President Obama was in line with what David Cameron did.
Yeah, he was. And what are you saying? That he never denounces terror? He does denounce terrorism.
He doesn't call it. He will not say we are war on terror, because if he does that, then we could do things like send enemy combatants to Gitmo. He doesn't want to do that.
I think
he wants
doesn't
to try
say war on terror because he hated it from the beginning because George Bush said it.
Yeah, let's roll the tape of what David Cameron had to say after the attack, shall we?
First, this country will be absolutely resolute in its stand against violent extremism and terror. We will never give in to terror or terrorism in any of its forms. Second, this view is shared by every community in our country.
I mean, there is a difference between Cameron and Obama, I think.
And the difference is the word Islam. Radical Islamic terror, Obama will not say those words, and he absolutely should. And I actually commend you, Bob. I agree with you on the immigration point. This is exactly how it started in Europe. Immigration, allowing them to come in carte blanche to European countries in the 60s to allow them to work. They stayed. Their kids are becoming radicalized. We are at risk of the same thing.
Could I read this statement? This is the Rigby family. Lee Rigby was the soldier that was brutally murdered. I just want to read this because it's important, and he's the victim, and he's the important person here. Not Lee was lovely. He would do anything for anybody. He always looked after his sisters and always protected them. He took a big brother role with everyone. All he wanted to do from when he was a little boy was be in the Army. He wanted to live life and enjoy himself. His family meant everything to him. He was a loving son, husband, father, brother, an uncle, and a friend to many. We ask that our privacy be respected at this difficult time.
Well, it's such a sad commentary. You know, I go back in history and say, you know, the Ottoman Empire tried to take over. You talk about this caliphate all the time, and they got as far in the Ottoman Empire as Spain, if I remember right. They took over big swaths of Europe, and it is as if there's some way that they're trying to do that all over again. They can't win.
But the strange thing is that so the terrorist here was not. He was born in Britain. Okay, when you think of the Boston bombers, they're not born in America, right? So it's a second-generation piece. And the self-radicalization. I'm not buying the self-radicalization.
But you know, Bob, when you said they can't win, they are finding an avenue by using jiu-jitsu. They're using our tolerance to allow because we're scared of being called Islamophobic. So we won't.
I don't. Well, you may say that. I know you blame Obama about that, but I think most people, particularly all the liberals, have the same view about this. We don't like terror, and we don't like Christians being beat up and murdered by a bunch of Muslim fanatics, and they better stop.
Right.
Or what? That's the problem. Or else.
Or drones.
What? Oh well, we're going to talk about that later.